The first human settlers of the land Callan had would one day unite were known as the Alamarri. This tribal people crossed the Frostback Mountains over 3,000 years ago and quickly spread throughout the valley. Legends say that this migration was driven by fear of a shadow goddess or some demonic scourge, though details are scarce. At this time, Ferelden is described as a savage land, with werewolves stalking the wilds and elven temples hidden among the trees. We know little of the elves who lived here before, only that their empire was crumbling already, and the Alamarri pushed the survivors into hiding. Some elven ruins remain yet unplundered deep in the Brazilian forest. Their domination of the valley secure, three principal tribes emerged to prominence among the Alamarri, each with their own traditions and affiliations. The Clane settled the Central Plains in the west. The people living around Lake Callan had, though it probably was not called that at the time, broke away from the rest of the Alamarri and called themselves the Avar. Another group called the Chastened would also break away from the rest of the Alamarri to settle in the unexplored and untamed Kokari wilds to the south 4 centuries later. The three tribes would battle for control of the valley for centuries to come. Alamarri control of Ferelden did not go unchallenged, however. The mage rulers of the Tevinter Imperium successfully invaded Ferelden in 715 Ancient. The Alamarri's defense had mixed success. The Clane were more successful than the Chastened, and the Avar were more successful than either in keeping the Imperium out of their territory. Nonetheless, while the Alamarri fought Tevinter, they continued to fight each other, and after several attempts, the Imperium managed to wrest control of Ferelden's central basin, an occupation that would last for 5 centuries. Although the Imperial Highway spans the length of Ferelden, and Tevinter forts could be found as far south as Ostagar on the border of the Kokari Wilds, formal rule over the Alamarri proved all but impossible to establish. Instead, Ferelden's human and scattered elven populace became a favorite target of Tevinter slavers. Indeed, the city of Amarius, now known as Kirkwall, was established just across the Waking Sea to act as a hub for the imperial slave trade. Perhaps the only positive byproduct of this time was the introduction of the Mabari Warhound. Said to have been bred by a Tevinter mage for intelligence, Mabari were quickly adopted by the local Alamarri as loyal companions and symbols of prestige. In fact, legend has it the Mabari defected to the barbarians en masse before Tevinter left. Everything changed after the first blight. The Ferelden Valley was spared the worst ravages of the Darkspawn, but Tevinter was devastated. The Imperium was unprepared for a united Alamarri. One Alamarri woman, a former slave named Andraste, claimed to be a prophet of the Maker, a god that demanded the end of the Imperium and the worship of all. Her faith quickly became popular among the Alamarri, particularly those dwelling in the valley. We don't know much about what gods and beliefs the Alamarri held before Andraste, or if they had unified beliefs at all. Andraste was married to an Avar warlord named Mafarath. Mafarath leveraged Andraste's growing influence among the Alamarri clans to gain power among them, and in 180 Ancient, husband and wife led a massive Alamarri army across the Waking Sea. The full story of Andraste and Mafarath will wait for another time. Suffice to say that the once mighty Tevinter Imperium was a shell, weakened by rebellions, a depleted army, and devastated infrastructure. The Southern Imperium fell to the Alamarri. Andraste wished to push north until the imperial capital itself had fallen, but Mafarath doubted. The motives for his betrayal are subject to debate, but many believe his choice was a strategic one. Mafarath believed that their armies were already overstretched, and would be hard-pressed to hold even the territory they had already conquered. Mafarath struck a bargain with the Tevinter Archon, exchanging peace for Alamarri control of the south. In doing so, he betrayed his wife to Tevinter, and Andraste was executed in the imperial capital. Mafarath split rule of the conquered lands between his 3 sons and granted the Dales to the rebel elven slaves that had aided them in their fight against the Imperium. He claimed the Ferelden Valley for himself. However, when the Tevinter Archon converted to Andraste's teachings and revealed Mafarath's treachery, the Alamarri turned against him, and the once mighty warlord was murdered by his own sons. His sons lost control of the territories their father had conquered, and the various Alamarri warlords immediately began a long series of civil wars over who would replace Maferath. The Alamarri moment of empire had passed. They were once again a divided people. While they were spared the brunt of the first blight, the Alamarri were not so lucky when the second blight began in 1-5 Divine. Darkspawn, foul and diseased creatures interested only in slaughter, emerged from the dwarven deep roads, and tore a bloody path across the land for decades. A man named Hafter emerged to lead the Alamarri, a warrior of great renown and a talented leader. In 140 Divine, he united the Alamarri in the valley, and pushed back the horde. Seeking to take advantage of the weakened Clane, the Chastened and Avar launched a combined invasion to expand their territory in 150 Divine. Hafter led the Clane to victory against both rival tribes, for which he was given the title of Tairn, the first to ever bear that title. The Chastened were pressed back into the Kokari wilds. The Avar lost their territory around the lake and were pushed into the Frostback Mountains. The descendants of the Clane would eventually be united by Calenhad into the kingdom of Ferelden, but that's another story. There was another foe that would attempt to seize control of Ferelden. In 480 Black, 30 years before the birth of Calenhad, the Orlesian Empire would attempt to take advantage of the fractured Alamarri to expand their territory into the Ferelden Valley. The Orlesian strategy hinged on capturing the port city of Highever, so they could resupply their troops by sea rather than through Garland's Pass and the Frostbacks. However, Orlesian forces faced delays when Redcliffe Castle held out longer than anticipated, and they were unable to take it. By winter, the Orlesians were facing supply shortages, and the Alamarri Tairns had formed an alliance to push the invaders out of the valley. By 484, most of the Orlesian forces had been captured or had retreated across the Frostbacks, though that would not be the last time Dorlé would try to conquer Ferelden. Hey guys, I actually meant to get this video out a bit sooner, but I had some computer troubles I needed to work out. Anyway, I was actually surprised by how positive the reception was to the last video, and I definitely want to keep making them going forward. For now, focusing on Ferelden, there's a lot to dig into. Then perhaps we'll move on to Orlé, how about that? Anyway, give me your suggestions, tell me what you want to see. See you in the next video.